Greetings, Trekkies, Trekkers, geeks, nerds, and all friendly foes alike. This is Jay from 21st Century Reviews, bringing you a review for Star Trek III, The Search for Spock. We are officially back on the air after about 18 months of being on hiatus. It's about time, and here we are. So without further ado, here's Star Trek III, The Search for Spock. Starring William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy, DeForest Kelley, and Christopher Lloyd. This film takes place in the aftermath of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. We are forced to see our hero, Admiral Kirk, dealing with the death of his best friend, Captain Spock, from the previous film. Unfortunately, we see James Kirk having to deal with this, as well as the possibility of the retirement of the USS Enterprise and the end of his career as he has known it from a long period of standing and being basically a hero to those around him. Thusly, the USS Enterprise is recalled home to space dock and ordered not to speak of the Genesis project with which they had just been involved in the creation of a new world and following the death of their beloved comrade. Unfortunately, this is where we see a lot of the plot really start to thicken up and really get pretty crazy, because this is where we're going to see what loyalty is really like in lieu of the Enterprise being forced into retirement at space dock. As we see the USS Enterprise pulling into space dock, we unfortunately get to see the grim aftermath and the horrible reminder of what happened in the previous film in the battles with Khan, and the fact that the Enterprise is severely damaged, not only on the inside but on the outside as well. The crew has morale is in terrible shape, no one's in good moods, spirits are low, everything is bad, and then it only gets worse for this crew, as they then learn that they are not allowed to speak anything further of the Genesis device, and they are not allowed to speak of anything really in regards to the loss of their comrade. Unfortunately, it leaves a very bitter taste in pretty much everyone's mouth in regards to what's going on, until we have the arrival of Sarek, who then sets Kirk on the mission that we are going to see the crew of the USS Enterprise undertake for the last time with their beloved starship. We are then introduced to Christopher Lloyd's character, the vicious and cruel Commander Kruge of the Klingon Empire, a man hell-bent on revenge, destruction, and ultimately being in possession of the greatest power in the universe, that which he considers to be the Genesis device. He considers it to be a weapon of mass destruction, when in reality it was meant to be something to create life, not destroy it. Although, come to find out, Genesis will destroy more than it creates. Sadly, like I said before, Commander Kruge and Christopher Lloyd both get quite wide criticism from all sorts of critics around for saying that his portrayal of the character was bad, and that they really didn't care for this film as a general rule just because of a lot of the sappier and the more depressing undertones of this film. This is actually where I felt the Klingons really shined, because what we saw of them in Star Trek the Motion Picture didn't really give them a lot of license, other than the fact that we were more confused by their appearances, as we hadn't seen what they really looked like since Star Trek, the original TV series. This actually gives us a real glimmer of what the warrior of the Klingons really looks like, and the fact that they are driven by honor and by a form of really trying to express themselves in basically their pursuit for the ultimate superiority among their enemies. They wish to die with honor in battle against their greatest foes, and that's how they determine who they are and where they stand. To me, this is where we really get to see who they really are, and to be honest, I really enjoy it for that reason. When you see Kruge and Kirk really lock horns on Genesis over who's ultimately going to control the power, it's really an epic clash, and I always actually considered it to be one of the best in the entire group. So, I do have to say that I don't really care for it when people really crap on this character the way they do. After a very heartfelt request and a mind meld with the Vulcan Sarek, Kirk is forced to talk to Starfleet Command to attempt to form a rescue plan to go back to Genesis to attempt to rescue his friend, whom he has been informed is not all that he should be, considering that his mind and his body are officially separated, and Kirk then takes upon himself to attempt to right the wrong that was done to his best friend, per the request of his best friend's father. Now, this is again where one of those situations where we actually learn about what it really means to have loyalty and respect and sacrifice, and ultimately this is where I really feel the crew shines. This takes us then to Admiral Kirk and crew then thus stealing the Enterprise from space dock and ultimately pursuing a mission based solely on loyalty. This scene always struck me as just amazing as we see Admiral Kirk and McCoy standing on the deck of the Enterprise facing their crew members, telling them that, hey, I don't want to drag you down with me because what we're about to do is against the law. I can't ask you to come with us on this. And every member of the crew looks at him without even missing a cue and just asks him, what do they need to do? It's one of those unspoken loyalty moments that I think most people don't really have a solid appreciation for anymore, and you really see it as a major lack in most modern films, such as the Star Trek reboots that we will review at a later date. Unfortunately, again, this is where we really see the crew really stand the test of what loyalty really means and stands for. The crew then successfully breaks the USS Enterprise out of space dock, being pursued quite readily by the USS Excelsior, unbeknownst to them that Scotty has already very, very successfully sabotaged them behind their back. We then see the USS Enterprise make its daring escape out of space dock and onto its mission of its own personal need in order to save their friend. Again, I have to just make a personal note to say that when you watch this, and like when you see the Enterprise almost run face first into the doors on its way out, it really just goes to show that when push comes to shove, friends will literally do anything they have to do to save their fellow friend. And this, to me, was always the ultimate expression of loyalty and sacrifice in this kind of a situation. It literally puts goosebumps on my arms every time I see that scene and the way that they just kind of react to it. The Enterprise then makes its daring escape to Genesis, only to then be forced to do battle with the very Klingons that they never thought they would have to face, and ultimately to make the ultimate in sacrifices. The Enterprise is then forced into battle with its Klingon adversaries in the orbit of the Genesis planet, ultimately leading to the murder of Admiral Kirk's son, whom he's only known for such a short window, but it really punches him in the stomach and really hits him right at home, considering all he has already lost, and it only gets worse from here. Unfortunately, the Enterprise doesn't have the ability to hold off the Klingons, and they are forced to have to make very hard decisions, ultimately leading to something that they never ever thought they would have to do, and making yet another ultimate sacrifice, all for the sake of doing the right thing. Again, this is a spot where this really shows just what a crew will be motivated to do. Kirk, with a stroke of genius, then sets the self-destruct of the Enterprise, thus trapping the Klingons on board, thus forcing them to be killed in action and allowing his crew to escape to the Genesis planet in safety. Sadly, the crew has to stand by on the planet's surface and watch their beloved starship burn up in orbit as they were forced to abandon her and leave her to them. But unfortunately, this is what will eventually lead them to rescuing their friend and bringing them to the ultimate expression of their loyalty to each other and to being what friendship really is all about. Sadly, it is very much a sad scene, and unfortunately, there's not a whole lot that can be really said for it. Kirk sadly has to look even to Dr. McCoy and say, "My God, Bones, what have I done?" Unfortunately, Dr. McCoy is right in telling him that he did what he had to do and what he always does, which is turn death into a fighting chance to live. Truer words could not be spoken in this manner, and it's amazing to me to see these scenes over and over and over again, and to just take in the entire scope of this story. A raging fistfight then ensues between Kirk and Krug over who will control the Genesis device. Truth be told, Kirk doesn't care about the Genesis device as he knows what it's capable of, and he wants the Klingons to have no part of it. So he will literally fight Commander Krug to the death over not only keeping the Genesis device out of their hands, but to ultimately save the almost lifeless body of Spock, who is still marooned on Genesis. This is the kind of thing where you literally look at what's going on and you see this planet blowing up around them, and yet he still makes the ultimate effort to save his friend no matter what the cost is. And that is what truly the source of friendship is all about. That's why Kirk and Spock's friendship will always be timeless and will always be a favorite for me. We have then returned to Vulcan, where McCoy will then give the Katra, or as we would know it, the mind of Spock, back to Spock through a Vulcan ceremony of refusion, ultimately giving Spock his life back and letting him have a second chance with all of his friends and his family. Again, it's an ultimate expression that really is just amazing to see, and it really is a very heartfelt and heartwarming thing, especially after seeing a long-winded movie like this where it's very depressing, seeing all of this loss over and over and over again, and everybody losing everything that means so much to them, to have the movie end with these two friends being reunited once more. Weirdly enough, it's like one of those family reunions where everybody is just so happy to see you, and you have no real understanding why, but it's just at least nice to know that people actually missed you and that they really, really love you and that they want to be in your presence again. It's actually very heartwarming, and it's one of the things I really enjoy about this movie, is that yes, it's got a very depressing angle, but it ends on such a good note. Everything, it makes me very happy. So on that note, I give Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, 8 out of 10. Worth buying at the movie theater at full price with popcorn and concessions all the way around. This movie came out when I was 2 years old, and it was one of the 3 main movies I basically spent most of the first 5 years of my life watching. Weirdly enough, that was also Star Trek 1 and 2 as well. These movies are kind of ingrained in me, and even though a lot of people really, really dump on the first one, absolutely adore and love the second one, they tend to then crap on the third one because they just don't think that this movie holds up to the other ones. I can't but do anything but disagree with that statement. Like I said, it shows so many different things, being the fact that it shows you loyalty, friendship, sacrifice, birth and death, life and death, the ultimate expression of what family and friends are really all about, and what it really truly means to be that. And to be honest, that's why I give this movie such a high praise. I know a lot of people just don't care for it, but you know what, that's okay, because this is my opinion, and it's my opinion for a reason. So, in my opinion, 8 out of 10. So, thanks for watching. We're going to actually be putting out these new reviews on a fairly regular basis, so be looking for it. Subscribe to the channel. If you want to add any video comments, please feel free to do so at the bottom. I like input. Anything you want to know, anything you want to ask, please feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Peace.